All right, folks, if you've run into Mark Rogers TV for the first time, this is what we do. We talk college football for the serious fan each and every day with the top bloggers and broadcasters across the country. So check us out at MarkRogersTV.com. Those are the videos. You can check out the long-form discussions audio podcasts at Mark Rogers TV at Podbean. So go to Podbean or iTunes and search Mark Rogers TV. You have caught us in the midst of reconstructing college football, top to bottom. The conferences need to be changed, the scheduling, and also the college football playoff. Much of it's good right now. Much of it makes sense. A lot of it doesn't. So we have restructured the conferences. We now have 6 power conferences, not 5. We are now at 6 power conferences. Check out the introductory video. You'll find out what this is all about, the purpose, the goal, to make sense out of college football and restructure it so it's an even playing field for competition for championships. That is one of the main goals. We also make geographic sense. No more West Virginia in the Big 12, for example. All right, we've made our way to the ACC. You're going to love the new ACC because when I think ACC, traditionally Atlantic and South. Boston College doesn't make sense. Pitt, Louisville, Syracuse. All right, Louisville from a football standpoint and basketball, good fit for the ACC competitively, but we have a use for Louisville elsewhere. We'll get to that. The new ACC looks like this because those schools belong elsewhere. All right, in the ACC Atlantic Division, we've got Miami, Florida State, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, South Florida, and Central Florida. That is the 6-team ACC Atlantic Division. In the Coastal, North Carolina State, Clemson, Virginia Tech, and Duke. That is the new Coastal Division. So we've added Central Florida and South Florida. So don't you love the rivalries we've established here in the ACC Atlantic Division with Miami, Florida State, South Florida, and Central Florida all playing in the same division. We have ousted BC, Syracuse, Pitt, and Louisville. You might be able to see where we're headed with this. All right, this is conference number 5. It's the ACC down to 12 teams. Okay, now let's get to the scheduling. And if you've yet to see any of these videos, we are balancing the scheduling. Every team is going to play a 9-game conference season. No more this league plays 8 games, this one plays 9, and no more schools running around scheduling games based on their own agenda. We are creating a formula schedule. So we are allowing each school to go out and schedule one game on its own versus an FCS or a group of 5 team. Or they could add another Power 6 game if they can find a match there. Otherwise, the other 2 of the 3 non-conference games are going to be scheduled by our College Football Playoff Committee and our College Football Scheduling Committee, kind of separate from the Playoff Committee. Or we could merge them. Or it could just be me. So basically, the endeavor here, and it gets confused sometimes by certain people as an NFL parity-driven schedule, and that is not what we're doing here. The NFL is trying to bring up the bottom feeders to compete with the upper echelon. It's trying to create parity in everything it does. The NFL draft, of course, the best teams pick last. The worst teams pick first to try to get the best players. They do the same thing with scheduling. The better teams have the tougher schedules the next season, and the bad teams have the easier schedules to try to lift them up. That is not fair. What is fair is to give everyone the same schedule or as close as you can project based on last year's results. So everybody is going to play a 500 out-of-conference schedule. Case in point, Clemson. Okay, in this particular example, we are matching up the ACC against the SEC. So every conference is going to have a series against another conference every football season. So let's say this particular football season that the ACC is playing the SEC and the Big Ten is playing the Pac-12 and the Big 12 is playing, etc. A conference to be unveiled shortly. Okay, so you play that one conference game that's matched up similar to the NFL matches up, let's say, the AFC North against the NFC West a particular year, and it rotates. This is going to rotate. Then the other game is selected to match up another opponent that's going to even out the schedule. You'll see here. Clemson is taking on who from the SEC? Well, they're going to take on South Carolina, who's 3-5. And I see where we may have an issue because of, and we've thought of this, out of conference rivalries. So we are going to keep the big rivalries intact of Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Kentucky, and Clemson, South Carolina. We may need to add an SEC game into the rotation at some point, and we'll get to that. But for this particular year, Clemson plays South Carolina out of the SEC, and South Carolina went 3-5 last year. So Clemson's other game is going to be against Iowa. It doesn't have to be against Iowa, but it needs to be against a team that is going to balance out the overall record. So South Carolina 3-5, Iowa 5-3. Clemson's two opponents are 8-8. Florida State's playing Florida, of course. Florida went 6-2 last year, so Florida State's other opponent, Missouri, 6-2, 2-6, 8-8. Miami's opponents, LSU out of the SEC, 5-3 last year in conference, and Miami's also going to play Cal, who went 3-6. So the record in that case is a game off because of the difference in conference scheduling, 8 games versus 9. But once we do this 1 year, then it's going to be perfect. North Carolina is going to take on Georgia like they did a couple years ago. Georgia went 4-4 in the SEC last year, and North Carolina's other game, TCU. How about TCU? They went 4-5. They could play a number of teams to even out the schedule. So I'm not going to go through every team in the ACC. The final video is going to be a complete new schedule, complete 2000. What should be 17, but by the time college football's authorities get a hold of this, 2018 schedule. All right, that's the ACC. Again, you got to listen to the introductory video to fully grasp what we're getting at here and what we're trying to accomplish. Need to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.